Have you ever looked at another country and thought, there's no way people actually live like that every single day? That's exactly how many Americans feel the first time they experience Australia. Not because of the beaches, the famous landmarks, or even the wildlife everyone talks about. It's the ordinary moments that leave the biggest impression. Imagine watching someone leave their phone on a cafe table while they grab another coffee. Seeing families spend hours at the beach without constantly worrying about what might happen. Or noticing neighbors who trust complete strangers far more than you'd expect. To Australians, these are just normal parts of life. But to many Americans, they look like risks no sensible person would ever take. So why does this happen? Are Australians simply fearless? Or is there something much deeper behind these everyday habits? Today, we're exploring the surprising things Australians do every single day that many Americans would never risk. Some of these habits might completely change the way you see Australia, and the final one is so unexpected that countless visitors say it completely changed their opinion of the country. So stay with us until the end because this journey only gets more surprising from here. Before we begin, it's important to remember that no country is exactly the same everywhere. Australia has busy cities, quiet country towns, remote communities, and everything in between. Not every Australian behaves the same way, just as not every American does. But there are certain everyday habits that many visitors notice almost immediately. They aren't written in any rule book, yet they quietly shape daily life across much of the country. And for someone arriving from the United States, these differences can feel surprisingly dramatic. One of the first things Americans often notice isn't a famous landmark or an unusual animal. It's the relaxed attitude people have toward everyday life. Australians certainly work hard and take responsibilities seriously, but outside of work, many people seem less rushed. Conversations last a little longer. Strangers smile without expecting anything in return. People stop to chat with neighbors, and weekends are often treated as time to enjoy life instead of constantly catching up on work. This slower pace can feel unfamiliar to visitors who are used to busier routines. That relaxed attitude also changes how Australians think about trust. Walk through a neighborhood cafe on a quiet morning, and you may notice someone stepping away from their table while leaving a laptop, handbag, or phone behind. At a local park, parents may leave a picnic blanket set up while they help children nearby. Along many beaches, families leave towels, shoes, and bags together while everyone enjoys the water. For many Americans, these scenes immediately raise one question. Isn't anyone worried something might disappear? The truth is, Australians aren't ignoring common sense. Theft can happen in Australia just as it can anywhere else in the world. People still lock their homes, secure valuable belongings, and stay aware of their surroundings. The difference is that many Australians, especially in smaller communities and quieter suburbs, have grown up with a stronger expectation that most people will respect each other's property. That expectation creates a different atmosphere. Instead of assuming the worst, many people naturally begin by assuming the best. American visitors often describe this as one of the biggest culture shocks they experience. They expect Australia to feel dangerous because of its famous wildlife, but instead they're surprised by how relaxed people seem around one another. It's not that Australians believe nothing bad can ever happen. Rather, they balance awareness with trust in a way that feels very different from what many visitors are used to. Of course, this doesn't mean Australians are careless. In busy parts of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or Perth, people become more cautious, just as they would in any large city around the world. Locals know there are situations where extra care makes sense. But compared with many American cities, visitors often notice that everyday interactions feel calmer and less guarded. That simple difference quietly shapes everything from shopping and dining to neighborhood life. What surprises Americans even more is that this relaxed confidence doesn't stop in towns or cities. Australians carry the same mindset into places where many outsiders expect them to be nervous. Whether it's spending hours at the beach, hiking through the bush, or exploring some of the country's most beautiful landscapes, Australians do it with a level of confidence that many first-time visitors struggle to understand. And that's where the next everyday habit becomes even more surprising. It isn't about trusting other people anymore. It's about trusting the environment around them in a way that many Americans would never expect. What surprises many Americans next is how naturally Australians embrace the outdoors. Long before sunrise, beaches begin filling with surfers chasing the first waves of the day. Parks become busy with people jogging, cycling, or simply walking their dogs. Families gather for weekend barbecues. Children play barefoot on the grass, and hiking trails welcome thousands of visitors every week. To Australians, this is simply part of everyday life. But for many Americans who grew up hearing stories about Australia's dangerous animals, it can feel like people are taking an unbelievable risk. Ask someone who's never been to Australia what they know about the country, and chances are they'll mention sharks, snakes, spiders, crocodiles, or jellyfish before anything else. Movies, television shows, and social media have spent years building the image of Australia as a place where danger waits around every corner. It's a reputation that fascinates people all over the world. Yet when Americans finally visit, many are shocked by how different reality actually feels. Australians don't ignore the fact that dangerous wildlife exists. Instead, they grow up learning how to live alongside nature safely. Children are taught simple outdoor rules from an early age. They learn why it's important to swim between the red and yellow flags on patrolled beaches, why warning signs should never be ignored, and why respecting wildlife is always better than trying to get close to it. These lessons become second nature, giving Australians confidence instead of fear. Take the beach as an example. For many visitors, the thought of swimming in Australian waters immediately brings one frightening image to mind: a shark. Yet millions of Australians head to the beach every year without thinking twice. That's because they understand that shark encounters are extremely rare, especially at popular beaches protected by lifeguards and safety patrols. They know the safest places to swim, they pay attention to local advice, and they avoid unnecessary risks. Confidence comes from knowledge, not from pretending danger doesn't exist. The same attitude applies when exploring Australia's national parks and bushland. Visitors often imagine every hiking trail filled with snakes waiting to strike. In reality, most walks are peaceful, beautiful, and completely uneventful. Australians know to stay on marked paths, wear suitable shoes, carry enough water, and watch where they step. By following these simple habits, they safely enjoy places that many outsiders assume are far too dangerous to explore. American visitors often admit that they expected Australia to feel intimidating, but instead, they discover something unexpected. The people aren't constantly talking about dangerous animals. They're talking about the weather, weekend plans, the best camping spots, or where to find a great coffee after a morning swim. Wildlife becomes just another part of the environment rather than something that controls daily life. That difference completely changes how people experience the country. Perhaps that's one of Australia's greatest surprises. The country has earned a reputation for being one of the most dangerous places on Earth, yet everyday life often feels remarkably calm. Australians understand that every environment has its risks. Whether it's heavy snow in one country, hurricanes in another, or wildlife in Australia, the key is learning how to live with the conditions around you instead of fearing them every day. For many Americans, that mindset is difficult to understand at first. They expect Australians to spend their lives worrying about what might happen. Instead, they find people who respect nature, prepare properly, and then go on enjoying their day. It's a level of confidence that doesn't come from taking reckless chances. It comes from experience, education, and a culture that encourages people to appreciate the outdoors responsibly. But while Australia's relationship with nature surprises many visitors, the next everyday habit often leaves Americans even more amazed. It has nothing to do with beaches or wildlife. Instead, it happens in neighborhoods across the country, where one simple everyday behavior reveals just how differently Australians think about community, trust, and the people around them. One of the biggest culture shocks for many Americans isn't something they see at the beach or in the Australian bush. It's something much simpler. It's the way Australians interact with complete strangers every single day. Visitors often notice that people seem more willing to strike up casual conversations, offer help without being asked, or greet someone they've never met before. At first, it feels unusual. But after spending time in Australia, many Americans realize these small moments create a sense of community that's difficult to ignore. Imagine walking into a neighborhood cafe. Before you've even ordered your coffee, the person behind the counter might ask how your morning is going. Someone waiting in line could make a lighthearted joke about the weather. If you're looking confused while reading a map or checking directions, there's a good chance a local will ask if you need help. These interactions aren't considered extraordinary. For many Australians, they're simply part of being friendly. Of course, not every Australian is outgoing, and big cities can sometimes feel just as busy and anonymous as anywhere else in the world. But compared with what many American visitors expect, Australians often appear more comfortable starting conversations with people they don't know. It's not about becoming lifelong friends in a single afternoon. It's about creating a relaxed atmosphere where people feel comfortable acknowledging one another, instead of pretending everyone else is invisible. This attitude becomes even more noticeable in smaller towns. Walk through a local shopping street, and people may smile as they pass by. Drivers sometimes give a quick wave to thank another motorist for letting them merge into traffic. Neighbors stop for a short conversation while collecting the mail. These gestures may seem small, but together they create an environment where people feel connected to the communities they live in. For many Americans, this level of openness can feel surprising. In larger cities across the United States, people often keep to themselves simply because life moves so quickly. Australians certainly value privacy too, but many also value the idea that everyday kindness makes life more enjoyable. A brief conversation with a stranger or a friendly greeting costs nothing, yet it can completely change the mood of someone's day. Another thing that catches visitors off guard is Australia's strong volunteer culture. Across the country, thousands of people freely give their time to support local communities. Volunteer firefighters protect towns during bushfire season. Surf lifesavers spend weekends watching over beaches to help keep swimmers safe. Community sports clubs rely on volunteers to coach children, organize events, and maintain facilities. Many Australians grow up seeing this as a normal part of community life rather than something unusual. For Americans, it's often inspiring to discover how much everyday life depends on people willing to help without expecting recognition. These volunteers aren't trying to become famous. They're simply contributing because they believe strong communities are built when people look out for one another. That quiet sense of responsibility helps explain why many Australians place such a high value on trust and cooperation. Perhaps that's why so many American visitors leave Australia talking less about the wildlife and more about the people. They arrive expecting dangerous animals around every corner, but they return home remembering friendly conversations, welcoming communities, and a lifestyle that feels surprisingly relaxed. It's a reminder that what makes a country memorable isn't always its famous landmarks. Sometimes it's the everyday attitudes that shape how people treat one another. And if you think that's the most surprising difference between Australia and the United States, the next habit changes the conversation completely. It involves something every family deals with, yet Australians approach it in a way that many Americans say they never expected, and it might be the biggest surprise of them all.